Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganata Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganata Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhya Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Kridaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shiradikama Dabayara Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Dabayara Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana sa Dhanalaloprasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Ne kunja yono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virjukti Apekshaniya Nekundayono Pratikesi Jayali Virjukti Tatratidaksha Atibalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Sakshat Haritena Samasta Shastre Ruktastathabha Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakshat Haritena Shastre Ruktastathabha Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Sado Yasya Prasada Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Jayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasatrin Sandhyam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Deve Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Prabhu Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Yadavaye Namah Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Namah Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Shri Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe, Radha, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Nitai Gaura, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanande, Haribo, Jai Vishupara Paramansa Prabhajakacharya Stutara Sarachishima, ISKCON Pratishta, Bhiviti Samstapakacharya, Vaishnava Siromani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Data Bhakti Pavana, His Divine Grace, Bhojanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Udhar ki jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu ki jai, Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai, Jayananta Koti Vaishnavrendi ki jai, Prem si kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama, Shri Satchidananda Shman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari, Mahavrana Avatar ki jai, Golokera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai, Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Brihat Midanga Transcendental Bhakti Shri Vishnu Seva ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund, Samakund, Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathur Dham ki jai, Deloship Shri Radha Nilmadhava ki jai, Shri Maya Purnavadip Eka Chakradam ki jai, Paramakuruna Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smas Bhadradevi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karna Shingare Bhagavan ki jai, Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Bolo Shrimati Radharani ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vinda ki jai, Nitai Gaurari Pramanande. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Latangka nakalaye
Ito na singha parato na singha
Ito nisingha parato nisingha
Yato yato yamitato na singha
Jato jato jamitato nisingha
Bahir na singha hriday na singha
Bahir nisingha hridaye nisingha
Narsingha madim sharanam prapadye
Narasingha madim sharanam prapade
Tavakara kamalavare nakam aduta singham dalita hiranyakashipu tanobringam keshavadrita narahari rupa jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare
Abakara kamala vare nakam adbhuta singha dalita hiranyakashipu tanabhinga kesavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re
Keshavadrita narahari rupa jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare
Jaya Kesavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev
Jaya Narsingha Dev
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai Prahlad Maharaj ki jai
Jai Shri Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai tulasi debai Priyayai kesava satya Vishnu bhakti pradidevi Satavataye namo namah. Vrindayai tulasi debai Priyayai kesava satya Krishna bhakti pradidevi Satavataye namo namah. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki.
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Eya Bilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Bhilasi
Jaitamara Shayanalai Taravancha Purnaho
Jaitamara Shayanalai Taravancha Purnaho
Kripa Kori Karatare Vanabasi
Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavanavasi
Moraeya Vilas Vilas Kunjariya
Moraeya Vilas Vilas Kunje Diyava
Nayane Heri Bhaksada Jugala Ruparashi
Aminayane Ribo Sada Jugala Ruparasi
Hey Nivedana Daro Sakirandugata Koro
Eni Vedana Dhara Sakirayanu Gatakara
Sevari Karadiye Karani Jadasi
Sevayadi Karadiye Karani Jadasi
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namoraho
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eyena Mora
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
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 Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmachati Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Tani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Panasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Pade Pade
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Shri Vrindayi Tulasi Devi Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you, his wish is fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry the emissaries of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praised. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha Govinda, Shrimati Tulasi Maharani, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikshastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Gatanamanam Pavamada Bhagnivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jeevanam Ananda Buddhivarmanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnam Param Parabhijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Itadrusitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamati Durdhaivam Idrisham Yajani Nanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichaina Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai Ainandatanu Jakinkaram Paritamam Vishrame Bhavam Budau Kripaya Tabapada Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashudharaya Varanam Gadegadarudhaya Gira Pulakair Chitam Bapu Kada Tavanam Grahane Bhavisyati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakyusha Pravusha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Asli Shabhapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanan Marmahatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Vidadhatulam Poto Matpranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Varannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Gaurati Shinama Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutari Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharani Vishesha Sunavari Pashatari Satani Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enabled us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some rather I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, Karma Kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting with the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance to all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the following conditioned souls. Shri Mangala Charan Guru Pranams Ki Jai. Om Gyana Timurandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Chachuran Militam Jaina Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jota Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam अद्वैतं सवधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यारिशतारिणे नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वती इति नामिने श्रीवर्षभानुवि देवी दैतया कृपाब्धये कृष्णसम्बन्धविज्ञानादायिने प्रभवे नमः मधुज्ज्वलप्रेमाद्या श्रीरूपनुगभक्तिदा श्रीगौरकरुणशक्तिविग्रहाय नमोऽस्तुते नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दिनतारिणे रूपनुगविरुद्धपुसिदन्तदन्तहारिणे नमः गौरकिशोराय सख्यवैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्भारसम्भोधे परमभुजयते नमः नमो भक्तिविनोदाय सच्चिदानन्दनामिने गौरशक्तिस्वरूपाय रूपनुगवरायते गौरविर्भावभूमित्वं निर्देशसजनप्रिय वैष्णवो सार्वभौमा श्रीजगन्नाथाय ते नमः वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावरण्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामिने गुरुश्रीये नमः पञ्चतत्त्वमकं कृष्ण भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतार भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तिशक्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपीककान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते जयतां सुरतपाङ्गोर्मम मन्दमतिर्गतिर्मत्सर्वस्य परं भोजो राधा मदनमोहनो दिव्यविन्दरण्यकल्पद्रुमधा स्मरन्नगार सिंहासनस्थो स्मराधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेवो पृष्ठदिविषैवमानुस्मरमि स्मरसरसरं दिवं शिवाततस्थिता कर्षन् वेणुस्वनेर्गोपीर्गोपीनाथक्ष्टुयेष्टुनो Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasat Masakalpa Vriksha Laksha Vriteshu Surabhi Ravipalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvananda Marulanda Dvaitaksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Kotika Maniya Vishesha Sobam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvana Malyavamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satafasar Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manasomini Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichinti Tatve Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagananda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagananda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diobjin Dastataiva
Samprup Yarupan Pahima Sanyanabusa Suktar Yamevan Yama Pratitastuvante Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajame Ananda Chinmayara Sarpati Bhavita Bistabirya Evan Chirupa Tayakalabi Goloka Evan Visata Kilat Mabuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajame Marimanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nana Avatar Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Srasesa Vasadati Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Maya Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Chagunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Satva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Anand Chinmaya Rasat Matayamana Suya Praninam Pratifilam Smanatam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Goloka Namni Nijdamni Tare Chitasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Shististati Pralaya Sada Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitesta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Shiram Yata Dali Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakastetu Yasam Bhutam Aptitam Sumapaitikar Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Deeparchadev Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivitetu Samana Dharma Yastadri Geva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajtisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagaranda Saroma Kubha Adhara Saktim Avalamya Paramsram Murtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yasyaika Nisvasit Kalam Atavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagaranda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesu Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Basman Yatasma Sakaleshan Ajaysa Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitat Pradatra Brahmaya Esa Jagaranda Vidanu Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Marudisa Shakala Tatatman Malasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutarastapam Se Brahmadi Kita Patagava Yatasajiva Yadata Matra Vipava Prakatapa Bhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yastrindra Gopamatavenda Mahoswa Karma Pandan Rupa Falabhajana Matanote Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yam Kroda Kama Sahaja Pranayadibiti Vatsalya Moho Guru Gaurav Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Sriyaki Antaka Antaparama Purusha Kalpataravo Jama Bhumis Chintamanita Pranama Toyamamritam Ghata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasa Kichiranandam Choti Param Apitad Aswatyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihisravadisravi Vyasta Sumahan Nimesa Dakyuva Rajiti Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhajesvita Dripu Tamaham Ihagola Kamitiam Vedanta Ste Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastika prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the material expected world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Are from my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet, as such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting a holy name, dancing next, singing, playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the melodies of pure devotion with his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Are from my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet, as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He is also engaged his disciples in such worship. They dress their deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. Are from my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet, as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, and alas is that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. Are from my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet, as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastime, erotic and Madhava, and the qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. Are from my respectful respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. For a most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Spiritual master, to be honored, is much the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to their Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I have my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master as a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yatra, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 22. Yatra Narayano Devo Narascha Bhagavan Rishi Mridu Tivram Tapadirgam Tepate Lokabhavano. Yatra, where? Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Deva, by incarnation. Nara, human being. Cha, also. Bhagavan, the Lord. Rishi, great sages. Mridu, amiable to everyone. Tivram, severe. Tapa, penance. Dirgam, very long. Tepate, performing. Lokabhavano, welfare of all living entities. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There, in Badarik Ashrama, the personality of Godhead, in His incarnation as the sages, Nara and Narayana, has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Badarik Ashrama in the Himalayas, the abode of the Narayana sages, is a great place of pilgrimage for the Hindus. Even up to the present, hundreds and thousands of pious Hindus go to pay respects to the incarnation of Godhead, Narayana. It appears that even 5,000 years ago, this holy place was being visited by such a holy being as Uddhava, and even at that time, the place was known to be very, very old. This particular pilgrimage site is very difficult to visit for ordinary men because of its difficult situation in the Himalayas, in a place which is covered by ice almost all year. A few months during the summer season, people can visit this place at great personal inconvenience. There are 4 dhammas, or kingdoms of God, which represent the planets of the spiritual sky, which consists of the Brahmajyoti and the Vaikunthas. These are Badarik Ashrama, Rameshwara, Jagannath Puri, and Dwarka. Faithful Hindus still visit all these holy places for perfection of spiritual realization, following in the footsteps of devotees like Uddhava. There, in Badarik Ashrama, the personality of Godhead, in His incarnation as the sages Nara and Narayana, has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Haribol. So the symptom of saintly people is that, number one, they always associate with other saintly people, and they try and avoid this situation of unholy people. And they're always engaged in activities meant to please Krishna or devotional service with the purpose of following Krishna's instructions and pleasing Krishna by executing those instructions without any personal motive or any personal expectation of a return. So Uddhava was such a devotee. He had no material desires, but he had plenty of spiritual desires to please Krishna. And when a person has such a mentality, Krishna becomes their best friend and always helps the devotee to accomplish all those desires to please him. So, this is the secret to success in life that most people ignore. Why do they ignore it? Because they're associating most of the time with people overwhelmed by lust and greed and anger and madness and envy, and so therefore they don't think of doing anything positive for the Lord. They think only of self-indulgence, indulging themselves in sense gratification all day long, and earning money just to do that sense gratification in a sustained way. So therefore, they miss the whole purpose of human life. The purpose of human life is not to stay in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, repeated infinitely in different species of life. There are 8,400,000 species. So, because we have an eternal soul, we could stay eternally in the material world suffering birth, death, old age, and disease. However, the purpose of the material world is to help us rehabilitate ourselves from these crooked desires of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals, and always striving for more sex and more money and more sense enjoyment. So therefore, that's not life. The animals do the same thing, right? And they don't have to work. They don't need money. They don't need to have big houses and cars and spend so much money maintaining all those things. Dogs and cats, they have sex right in the street, and there's no shame for them, and they can sleep anywhere, and they can eat, they can sleep. When they sleep, they have the same, let's say, feeling of rest and relaxation as a human being has. Their experience of sleep is the same as a human being. They get refreshed, and then they wake up, and their energy is revived. So, and when a female dog has babies, she has anywhere from 5 to 10 babies at once. Okay? So in many ways, animals are superior to human beings because they can do the same things that human beings do without spending a lot of energy and time working, and without having expensive overheads and so forth. So therefore, people are not meant to live like animals. The advice of great devotees is that one should use this life for engaging in tapasya, or self-denial of materialistic activities and desires, and full engagement in the devotional service of the Lord with pure desires to please the Lord. So, and this type of tapasya or austerity in the age of Kali is actually enjoyable, because our process of tapasya is eating only sanctified food, dancing. Dancing is very important in spiritual life, and chanting. We chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and we sing many beautiful songs glorifying Krishna, and we chant the mantra also. And then, so chanting, dancing, feasting, and then also engaging in sankirtan, going out into public and chanting and dancing and distributing sanctified food, and also distributing books that explain what the real purpose of life is, and then chanting, dancing, feasting, going on sankirtan, worshiping the deities as we do every day, and also hearing the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is all enjoyable, and bathing at least twice a day or 3 times a day, putting on clean, simple clothes, and living a minimalist life, not cluttering oneself with too many gadgets and things that you have to maintain all the time. And in this way, the life of a devotee is very simple. If we look at Vyasadeva or Narayana Rishis, they live in the highest parts of the Himalaya mountains. They live mostly in mud huts. They don't have cars, they don't have credit cards, they don't have Kaiser Permanente and things like that for their health. They're very healthy. Why? Because they eat little. And so in other words, there's a saying, if you work like a horse, you have to eat like a horse to have the energy to work like that. But if you live like a yogi and eat like a horse, you're nonsense, right? Because you'll just get fat. So therefore, the yogis, real yogis, they eat very little, but they eat things that are very highly nutritious, like pure milk and a little bit of ghee or clarified butter. And that's all they need. That's all they need to eat. And sometimes they can have other things also if they want to. So we see that the minimalist lifestyle is for health and energy and happiness. More people die by overeating than undereating. And so therefore, when you see in America right now, there is an epidemic of obesity. There's not only the COVID, there's also an epidemic of obesity. And you see this like in Walmart, and you see it in different supermarkets. You know, they're walking down the aisle like this, completely overweight. And they have so many problems, diabetes and high blood pressure, this thing and that thing. So this is all because of over self-indulgence, too much sense gratification, too much worrying and anxiety, and too much wasting time, being a couch potato, as they say in English. Just sitting down, watching the Super Bowl, drinking a Budweiser beer, and chomping on a hot dog. By the way, who would ever want to eat a hot dog? You know, it's one of the most disgusting types of meat. There are even more disgusting types of meat, but that's already pretty disgusting. So we see how low people's, let's say, lifestyle is. And because of that, there's a lot of frustration and violence also, because people get angry due to difficult situations in life and frustration. Okay, so here we see that the secret to success in life is to associate with saintly people, not associate with and watch movies about violence. And almost 90% of movies nowadays have gun violence in it. At least 60+% have sex in it, and also a lot of violent, let's say, scenes. So that actually trains a person to be, let's say, not they don't see killing and death as something horrible, because it's a normal thing in video games, it's a normal thing in television and in movies. And nowadays, to attract people to pay high prices to go to a movie, they have to have more and more violence and sex, because older movies don't have as much violence and sex as the new movies. So therefore, that is an enticement to get people to come when they see, very, very horrible scenes of murder and then sultry scenes of illicit sex. So it says here the problem of association, and we mentioned that yesterday, and we're going to hear a little bit more about it today. Tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So, therefore, when we choose friends that have bad habits, which is meat eating, gambling, speculation, illicit sex, and intoxication, we begin to think it's a normal thing. And most people think that it's only these things that give them pleasure in life. Going to the casino, going to the brothel, and the stock market, and then the steakhouses, just like Ruth Chris Steaks. It's a high-end steak restaurant, right? So there's an advertisement for these steakhouses all the time, and people go to them. And just like down the street, they opened up this Habit. Did you see that store? Habit. They have these big hamburgers full of meat, right? And people are waiting in line to eat them. Right? This is how degraded they have become. You know? So the fact that we are not disturbed by associating with materialistic people and watching movies and hearing all kinds of seminars and lectures, how to make more money, how to increase sense gratification, and so forth. It trains people to ruin their life with self-destructive activity. Okay, and then also hearing about, the glories of smoking marijuana, and also the different types of benzodiazepines. These are legal types of very destructive drugs. Okay, so therefore the association of bad people is what is bringing down this culture. Now, who are the bad people? They're the ones that are addicted to these. First of all, they're atheistic. And then secondly, they're addicted to these 4 self-destructive habits: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. So if you want to ruin your life, then hobnob with such people, and you will develop a liking for those same perverted activities. However, by associating with saintly people who do not engage in those 4 self-destructive activities, you become elevated spiritually, and you'll be a success in life. Success is based on regularity of activities. In other words, going to sleep early, waking up early, using those early hours, 3 hours before sunrise for spiritual life, and chanting the holy names of the Lord, hearing the glorification of the Lord by reciting choice prayers that are in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and so forth. In that way, by good association and by hearing uplifting things for spiritual advancement, one becomes very successful. What is the criterion of success? Being able to always think of Krishna with love and devotion and being engaged in the service of the Lord. That is success, because then there are many benefits. So in this age that we're living in, which is called Kali Yuga, there are many, let's say, unsavory and bad things. But there are a few very good things. So the first very good thing is that in this age, whenever we engage in devotional service, the result of that devotional service becomes eternal, the positive result. So that is, if we do 1% of service for Krishna in this lifetime, in the next lifetime we begin from 2%. Whereas in material life, unless you do 100% of an activity, you don't get the results. But in Krishna consciousness, even if you do 1% of service for the Lord, you get the results permanently. And the next time you engage in devotional service, you start at 2%. So this is a tremendous asset. In other words, nahabrikamanastasti pratijaya navidyate swapam apiyasi dharmasya chayate mahato bhayat. Anything done in the service of the Lord becomes a permanent asset, and you can only advance. You cannot let's say, disqualify the service you've done, even though it's in a previous life. So that's a huge advantage. Another advantage is, in previous ages, if you thought of doing something evil, you would immediately get the karmic results, which would be negative. But in this age, you have to actually perform the act. You may think of something evil, but you don't get the karmic result. But if you do the actual act, then you get the result, a negative result. And number three, in previous ages, if you thought of doing something good, you did not get the positive result or positive karma. But if you had to perform the action. But in this age, if you simply think of doing something good, you get the positive karmic reaction. So these are some advantages. And of course, the greatest advantage is in this age, Kalir Dosani De Rajan Astihi Mahadguna Kirtanad Eva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Brajet. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you can go back to Godhead. That's how powerful this mantra is. Man means the mind, tra means deliverance. A mantra delivers your mind from ignorance to the light of transcendental knowledge. And once you have transcendental knowledge, then you develop the taste for devotional service of the Lord, and that becomes your real vocation in life. And then another wonderful advantage is by hearing Bhagavad Gita, and especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're doing every day, your desires for material activities abates, and you develop strong desire to please Krishna. And in other words, you become purified of sinful activities in the past, sinful reactions to those activities, or karma, and you become purified the more you hear, and therefore you develop this whole culture of always trying to please Krishna through your thoughts, your activities, your words, your actions, etc. Okay, so these are advantages in this very negative time called Kali Yuga, the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. Okay, so then another main point is that Krishna is the seer. This is a verse in the first and third canto, 5th chapter, verse number 25. The Lord is the seer, and the external energy, which is seen, works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation, O greatly fortunate Vidura. This external energy is known as Maya, or illusion, and through her agency only is the entire material manifestation made possible. So, the seer and the seen. Krishna is the ultimate seer. What does that mean? That means that he is the ultimate enjoyer of all activities. So, when you're the seer, just like you go to a movie, what do you do in the movie? You see. Now, why did you go to that movie? It's for entertainment, right? So some people, and that's why they have different categories of movies. I forget what those categories are, but very violent movies with a lot of filthy language and sex scenes. That's called PG something, right? And then you have other movies that are more family friendly, and they have movies that are for kids and so forth. So we see that when you act as the seer, you are acting as the enjoyer. And just like people went to the Colosseum in Rome, ancient Rome, over 2,000 years ago. Why did they go there? To see the slaughter of two gladiators fighting to the death, or see the slaughter of Christians being eaten by lions and bears and things like that. That was their entertainment. Well, we see the same things today, but on television and in movies, and it's sort of simulated. But actually, there have been real murders shown on YouTube and other social media things where they actually killed the people, right? So people go to watch murders. Like, for example, when I give class in a big public setting, I sometimes ask the question, please raise your hand if you have murdered someone. And people are always shocked, and everyone's looking around to see if anyone raised their hand, and no one raises their hand usually. So, and then I ask, and please raise your hand if you saw someone murdered. And then again, everyone's looking around, and nobody raises their hand. And so I say, see, nobody has committed a murder. No one has seen someone murdered. Sometimes someone might raise their hand that they saw someone murdered. It was very rare. So this is a rare thing, to commit murder or to see it. But yet, you watch a television program or a movie, you'll see, sometimes 5 or 10 murders in 10 minutes, right? So you're seeing something that you would never do yourself, and you've never seen before. And now you're seeing it on a regular basis. What does that do to the mind? And then how about video games, where you have to advance in the video game by killing someone? See? So that desensitizes someone to murder. And sometimes, in a very significant way, it programs someone to become a murderer. And in many of these kids who go into school and kill other kids, they're angry and they're frustrated, and they usually watch all these movies, and they go to different web pages where they talk about suicide or murder, and they become desensitized, and they actually think that suicide or murder is a good thing and a positive solution for their problems or their vengeances and anger. So here we see that we should be the seen, not the seer. The seen is the person that offers service to the seer. The seer is the person that enjoys by seeing the dedication of the scene. So, like, for example, a mother will see her son or daughter with the eyes of protection and affection, but a sexual predator will see the same child differently, as a victim for his sense gratification or her sense gratification. So you see, when I say you see, seeing, being the seer is you're gonna act as the enjoyer, but being the seen, you deliver enjoyment to the ultimate seer, who is Krishna. So therefore, when people come, they come to see the deities. But actually, we should come to the temple to be seen by the deities, right? And be seen doing what? Bowing down to the deity, offering prayers to the deity of glorify. And a prayer is not give me; it's all about what can I do for you, Krishna, and glorifying the transcendental qualities of God. That's a prayer. So we see that there's a big difference between being the seer and being the seen. So the devotee always acts as the seen and always sees Krishna as the ultimate seer. So this verse says, the Lord is the seer, and the external energy, which is seen, works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. So Krishna is the universal, or he possesses universal consciousness. He's conscious of everything because he's present in every atom of the universe and in the heart of every living being. So he is not only the ultimate seer, but he is the ultimate, primary quality of everything. So the primary quality of something is its real essence. And what is the real essence of everything? It's Krishna, because he's present in every atom and present in the heart of every living being. And therefore, when we're looking for pleasure, we're actually looking for Krishna, because he is the reservoir of all pleasure. He's named he's named as Rama, the reservoir of all pleasure. But instead of finding Krishna, we end up, due to identifying with the body, trying to seek another body to exploit. So that is our problem. We don't know how to actually be successful in life. We don't know how to actually be happy in life. We're seeking happiness always in the wrong place, and usually by exploitation rather than by service and love. So this exploitation is a disease, and we're not meant to exploit. We're meant to serve God. Okay, so then it says, the Lord is the supreme seer. This is Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 24. The Lord, and it says in the purport, the Lord is the supreme seer because only by his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation. So Krishna can create simply by seeing or thinking. He doesn't have to perform the activity because he has infinite powers and energies. So simply by seeing, sa aiksata, as it says in Sanskrit, he creates. Simply by seeing, he can also procreate. That's how powerful he is. Any one of his senses can perform the function of any other sense. We don't have a body like that. Every one of our senses has only basically one or two functions. But every one of Krishna's senses are interchangeable. So he can eat by seeing, he can hear with his leg if he wants, he can fly through the air if he wants, he can use any one of his senses to perform any of the functions of the other senses. He has a transcendental body that never deteriorates, and is not subject to time, is not subject to decay, not subject to death. So here we see a unique, absolutely unique person. And the more we learn about those unique qualities of Krishna, the more we become convinced that I should be the eternal servant of this Supreme Lord. So, only by his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation. At that time, the seer was there, but the external energy, over which the glance of the Lord is cast, was not present yet. He felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife. This is a poetic simile. In other words, a poetic example, right? The Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation to give another chance to the conditioned souls who were dormant in forgetfulness. The cosmic manifestation gives the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead. And that is its main purpose. So this is the main purpose of the material creation. It's not to give us a chance to waste our time eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. It's to give us and give anybody who has a human form a chance to go back to the spiritual world. So if we understand that, then we would have to adjust our whole thinking and acting to achieve this most supreme goal, to go back to Godhead, to eternal life, free of birth, death, old age, disease, and also free of all anxieties. In the spiritual world called Vaikunta. Vaikunta means without anxiety. So the symptom of the material world is anxiety. And every day there's something that's going wrong with the body, and there's something going on wrong in the world, and we're in anxiety. So, but in the spiritual world, there's no anxiety because one is always satisfied by dint of service and love for Krishna, and there's a reciprocation going on all the time. Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. Yeyatamam papadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham mamavart manavartante manushyaparta sarvasaha. So that is a verse from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and it says that everyone is engaged in the service of Krishna somehow or other, and by that service, let me get the exact verse. It's 4th chapter, 11th verse of Bhagavad Gita. My pages always stick together. Let's see. Yeah. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So there's a reciprocal relationship with Krishna. As we engage in his service through surrender and affection, he reciprocates by revealing himself to us. So our understanding of God depends on our surrender to God, right? The more we surrender, the more Krishna gives us knowledge of himself. And the less we surrender, the less we see. If we don't surrender at all, you don't see anything about God. So everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him, or Krishna. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. So everything depends on our desire. Now, how do we develop desires? Well, we hear about something. Like, for example, if you hear about all the advantages of a Tesla, eventually you probably will buy it because you say, well, it has this, it has that, and you can do this with it, you can do that with it, and you don't have to buy gasoline anymore, and you just and then there's electric stations all over the country now where you can replenish the energy of the car, blah 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 blah. So you hear all those positive things, you say, well, I got to buy that car, right? Or if you there was once a man, he was a very good talker. So one day a poor farmer bought an old cow and was trying to sell it, and nobody was buying it. So he saw this, and he went up to the farmer and said, "Farmer," he said, "I know you're having difficulty selling your cow. Why don't you let me sell this cow for you?" He said, "Okay." So then the guy, started talking, and he's a very good talker. And he started talking about, this cow, it might look old, but actually it's giving, 30 gallons of milk every day. And they just went on and on explaining all these things that the cow was doing. Of course, it was a whole bunch of nonsense. But because he was so enthusiastic, speaking with a loud voice and praising and glorifying the cow's qualities, somebody bought it, and they paid a good price for it, right? And the farmer himself was amazed, right? So there was one man watching this, and he was very impressed the way that talker talked and inspired everyone to buy this old cow. So he went back home, and he had forgotten that that day a family was coming to meet him and his wife to talk about their son marrying his daughter. So when he gets back to the house, he remembers, oh my God, he sees them all sitting there. He says, oh my God, I forgot about this. And when he walks in, his wife is really steaming mad, but she can't yell at him because the guests are there. So she's just giving these dirty looks to him. He said, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. So he sits down, and then the family of the boy start telling them about all the good qualities of the boy. He graduated from Harvard, and he's got a PhD, and he's cum laude, top grades, and he got a job starting at $250,000 a year in this big company, and this thing and that thing. They went on for about a half an hour explaining all his great achievements and qualities, right? So then they said, well, tell us about your daughter. So the wife looks at him and says, say something, you idiot. And he said, so, he remembered the guy that sold the cow, right? So he stands up and says, well, my daughter, she is the most wonderful person in the world. And she can make a milkshake in 2 seconds. And he just started talking about, this thing and that thing, And then he got so into it, he started repeating some of the things that the guy said, He said, and her tail is really long, and she has got 4 legs. And, he went, and then it went, he didn't realize what he was saying, And the people, and he was like closing his eyes and talking, and looking up into the sky and everything. So while he was talking, they walked out. So, you see, by imitating someone without knowing, the technique, and by just imitating, you make a fool of yourself, which is what he did. And by the way, his daughter didn't marry that guy. So we have to really know what the qualities of Krishna are, and that is by coming every day to class and hearing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, so we don't make a fool of ourselves talking nonsense. And also, by praising the Lord becomes very pleased with us if we praise him correctly. So this is how to be successful in life. Success is not simply making money and having a lot of sense gratification. Success is being free of the cycle of birth and death and going back to the spiritual world where we came from and where we belong. So Krishna says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. And there, in other places, Srila Prabhupada gives alternate translation to this verse, and he says that the Lord responds to the proportion of the devotee's love for him. Right? That's another alternate translation. And another alternate translation in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 8th chapter, 17th verse, the Lord reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. So when we completely depend on the mercy of the Lord, and not only the mercy, the goodwill of the Lord will reward us because of our adherence to trying to please him and depending on his goodwill. And then also it says, that the Lord will the Lord will reveal himself to you in proportion to your sincere efforts to satisfy him only. So these are alternate translations of this same verse, 4th chapter, verse number 11, showing that there is definitely a reciprocal relationship with God. And it's not a God who is vengeful. It's a God who is extremely appreciative of our sincere efforts to serve him and please him. And he becomes the protector of the devotee. And he becomes the benefactor of the devotee. So when we develop such a relationship with Krishna, all our problems are over. Just like, let's say you were best friends with Jeff Bezos, and he would do anything to help you. Would you have any financial problems? Probably not. Because he would always be there to help you, because he feels beholden to you for some things that you might have done in the past when he was younger, etc. So if we become friends with Krishna, just like Arjuna was the friend of Krishna, therefore Krishna helped him, although Arjuna was destined to lose the battle of Kurukshetra. They were vastly outnumbered. He and his brothers were vastly outnumbered by the Kuru dynasty, but they defeated them. So, therefore, choosing Krishna as your best friend and depending on the mercy and goodwill of the Lord, you will be a success in every different way in this life. Therefore, it says, one devotee may want Krishna as the supreme master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps them also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal, blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Some of them, who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence, return to this material world, return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of their prescribed duties as the Yagyeshwara, and those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon the Lord's mercy alone, and all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Unless, therefore, one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama Sarvakama Va Moksha Kama Udari Dehi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajata Purusham Param. Whether one is without material desires, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive type, types of results, or is after liberation, one should, with all efforts, try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. So here is this one verse, 4th chapter, 11th verse. It gives us the secret of how to be successful in life and how to free ourselves from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, and go back to the spiritual world where we belong and where we came from originally. Why did we come here? Because we became jealous of God. So when you become jealous of God, because we're part and parcel of the Lord, you become jealous of yourself also. And therefore, this symptom of someone who has this self-jealousy or envy is they deny themselves any possibility to be Krishna conscious, even though it's available. But they will consistently walk away from it and deny themselves the opportunity to be Krishna conscious. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
So, Maharaj, depending upon this verse, what we just discussed, so Krishna helps on the people who wants to like have some desires in particular or faith in any demigod or anything what they are impersonalists or something. So, are we by suppose as a devotee, if you are asking someone to start doing worship of Krishna only rather than going for some other demigods or something, is it something we are going against the Krishna's plan or something?
We have to, first of all, understand what is the situation of a person before we prescribe something. Just like a doctor, he has to diagnose what the sickness is before he gives medicine. Otherwise, he could kill a person by giving the wrong medicine. And by the way, that happens a lot. At least 100 to 150,000 people die of medical mistakes every year in this country. Did you know that? Why don't you look that up? How many people die of medical mistakes? So, you have to be able to diagnose how this person is affected by Maya or illusion and how severe it is before you start telling them do this or do that. Right? Now, to do that, you would have to be an expert on the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that explains how the modes of material nature influence people. Go ahead, what does it say?
It's 251,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. By 100,000. Did you realize that? I mean, do you all realize that? 251,000 people die in this country every year due to medical mistakes. It's the third leading cause of death. Now, how do you make a medical mistake? Well, I'll tell you. A lot of times, sometimes you have surgeons, after the surgery is over and they sew up the person, they realize, oh my God, I forgot the clippers or this other thing in the body, and they have to open up the body again. You know, just imagine how stressful that is. Not for the doctor, but for the patient. They have to open them up again and take out the implement that they left inside the body. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. So, or when you're getting an inoculation, right? Now, by the way, in the Vedas, it's not allowed to put pins into the body. The Vedic Ayurveda and things like that, they don't accept inoculations through pins, and because the pin, what's the pin do? It goes directly into your vein, and it injects something into the vein, and then your heart's beating, so that'll go all over your body, right up to your brain and all over the body in a very short period of time. So if they make a mistake in the dosage, it can kill you, or it can make you, let's say, impaired for your whole life, right? So we see how dangerous it is going to a hospital. Yeah, sometimes they can cure people, but now we know. I hope none of you become a statistic, right? 200, how many?
250.
251,000.
Right.
In 1999, that number was about 98,000.
Oh, they're getting better at killing people. Wow. That's progress. That's progress.
Advanced
So,
technology.
a hospital could be one of the most dangerous places to go to,
Yes.
right? Okay, so it's the third highest, third leading cause of death in this country. Medical mistakes. Wow. And by the way, that's why the insurance policies of doctors are very high, and that's why doctors charge a lot of money. And when they're not confident that they should go solo in the business of doctoring, they join, like these big companies like Kaiser Permanente, because they're covered by the insurance of the company.
They also write down all the, when you go, first thing they do is like sign your agreement or whatever, there's clauses, so that you cannot sue them, right?
Yeah, they do that too,
Yeah.
right? Do you sign that paper?
Many times they do, yeah.
I wouldn't sign that paper. Why would I want to give free rein to somebody else on my life, right? And nobody I can't sue the person if he. I mean, that's crazy, right? Okay. So, any questions? By the way, what was your question?
So yeah, so my question was, are we against the Krishna's plan of like somebody has faith in something and we are asking them to, okay, no, you should
My
be.
answer was you have to be able to diagnose how, let's say, sick they are, right, or how much they're affected by the material nature. Because here, I'll give you an example. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says that you should not disturb people who are working in mundane ways. It says, 3rd chapter, 26th verse. This is, take a note here. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. There it is. So that's the answer to your question. You teach people. There's a proverb in Sanskrit. It says, "The mother teaches the daughter-in-law by first teaching the daughter." Have you ever heard that before? The mother teaches the daughter-in-law. So her son married somebody from the outside, right? So, and then she's going to live with the son's family, right? So the mother teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. So then, if the daughter is acting very respectfully to the mother, so the daughter-in-law learns by watching the daughter that she should also act in the same way with the mother. See? So, now why when I'm telling you this proverb? Because your example should teach people who are very materially engrossed. You can't convince them with words, but you could convince them with your example. But if you tell them, oh, you got to give up your job and you got to join the temple, I'll give you an example. There was one devotee in France. He was a fanatic. And he had a mother and father who were very nice people. I knew them personally. And they would come to the temple to see their son and also to engage in service. And they would do a lot of service in the temple, maybe once a month. So one day the son goes to see his mother and father, and he says, look, enough is enough. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm never going to see you again unless you immediately sell your house and both of you move into the temple. The mother stays with the brahmacharinis and the father stays with the brahmacharis, and should take up devotional service 100%. And the parents were shocked. They said, they couldn't believe what their son was saying. And he said it with so much, emphasis and anger, in fact, And he's saying, I'm not going to be your son anymore. I'm not going to see you anymore. You have to surrender now. And they said, no, you can't do it. Right? Fast forward 2 years, the son left Krishna consciousness, ran off with some woman, and took up a life of mundane stuff. And a year after that, the mother and father got initiated. And they never left Krishna consciousness. You see? And that's a true story. Right? So it just shows you, being a fanatic like that, you're not going to convince anyone to be Krishna conscious. And even you will probably leave Krishna consciousness because of that fanaticism. So just follow what this verse says. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. There it is. Answer to your question. Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
What is it?
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Shadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Shadma. Bandamui savadhana mate. Bandamui savadhana mate. Yahara prasade bhai ke bhavatoriya jai. Yahara prasade bhai e bhavatoriya jai. prapti hoya hoite. Krishna prapti hoya hoite. Guru mukha padma vakya chite te koriya kya. Guru mukha padma vakya chite te koriya kya. Arna kori ho mane asha. Arna kori ho mane asha. Charane rati aise utama gati. Shri Guru Charane rati aise utama gati. He prasade pure sarvo asha. Prasade pure sarva asha. Chakshudan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. Chakshudan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Prema Bhakti Aha Hoite. Avidya Vinashayate. Prema Bhakti Bhakti Ya Hoite. Vinashayate. Prema Bhakti Ya Hoite. Avidya Vinashayate. Vedegaya Hara Charito. Vedegaya Hara Charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaya Nara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaya Nara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaya Nara Bandhu. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Lokanath Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Kara Daya Deo Mare Pada Chaya Ha Prabhu Kara Daya Deo Mare Pada Chaya Ha Prabhu Kara Daya Deo Mare Pada Chaya Ebe Ashku Shukri Bhuvana Ebe Ashku Shukri Bhuvana Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaya Naira Bandhu Ha Prabhu Kara Daya Deo Mare Pada Chaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada 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 Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jai Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which you can enter pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor. By his might, portion of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the Lord and his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani.